Breathe slowly and imagine the Earth billions of years ago. No trees, no seas, only fire and darkness. In this quiet journey, we'll follow the Earth from its first moments, all the way to the world we know today. Now, let your breath grow calm. Let time fall away as we drift back to the very beginning. Before there was Earth, there was silence. There was no ocean, no land, no sky, no mountains or valleys, no animals or people, not even the faintest whisper of wind. There was only darkness. And then, in a single unimaginable moment, that darkness was broken. From almost nothing, the universe was born. A spark, smaller than an atom, carried within it the energy of everything that ever was and everything that ever would be. This moment is what scientists call the Big Bang. But to us, it was the first heartbeat of time. In the very beginning, the newborn universe was unimaginably hot and dense. It expanded faster than light itself. In just a fraction of a second, it stretched from smaller than a grain of sand to larger than entire galaxies. At first, there were no stars, no planets, no light we could see. Only pure energy, swirling and rushing outward. As the universe expanded, it cooled. Energy became matter. Tiny particles, like protons and neutrons, began to form. These tiny building blocks combined to create the simplest atoms: hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium. These were the first ingredients of everything to come. For hundreds of thousands of years, the universe was dark and formless. Clouds of hydrogen and helium drifted through space. There was no color, no sound, only silence and endless night. This period is often called the Dark Ages of the cosmos. But even in this silence, gravity was working patiently. Slowly, invisibly, it pulled atoms together. It gathered clouds of gas into denser and denser regions. The universe was waiting. It was preparing. And then, the waiting ended. In the hearts of those dense clouds, pressure and temperature grew. Atoms began to fuse together. And in that moment, the very first stars were born. With their light, the universe awoke. These first stars burned with a brilliance we can hardly imagine. In their fiery hearts, hydrogen fused into helium, releasing light and heat. Deep inside, heavier elements were forged: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron. And when the largest of these first stars died, they died in spectacular explosions called supernovae. Their violent deaths scattered those new elements into space, seeding the universe with the materials that would one day become planets, oceans, and life. Every atom inside of us, every breath we take, every drop of water, every grain of soil was created long ago in the heart of a star. We are, in a very real way, children of starlight. Over billions of years, stars were born, lived, and died. Galaxies grew. Among them was our own galaxy, the Milky Way, a graceful spiral of stars, stretching 100,000 light-years across. On one quiet arm of this galaxy, far from its crowded center, a great cloud of dust and gas drifted in space. For millions of years, it floated undisturbed. But then, something changed. Perhaps a nearby star exploded, sending out a shock wave. Perhaps gravity simply gathered it too tightly Whatever the cause, the cloud began to collapse inward. At its center, pressure built higher and higher until hydrogen atoms fused and a new star was born. That star was our sun. The sun blazed to life, igniting with nuclear fire, casting light and warmth into the cold. Around it, leftover gas and dust flattened into a great spinning disk, a protoplanetary disk stretching wide through space. Within this disk, tiny grains of dust began to collide. Electrostatic forces held them together. Over time, they grew larger. Grains became pebbles. Pebbles became boulders. Boulders became mountain-sized bodies called planetesimals. It was a slow, patient process, happening over millions of years. Some of these young bodies smashed together and shattered. Others survived, growing larger and larger, and from them, the planets began to form. Closer to the sun, where heat burned away lighter gases, only rocks and metals could survive. Here, 4 small solid planets were born: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Farther out, where it was cooler, giant worlds formed: Jupiter and Saturn, with vast atmospheres of hydrogen and helium. Uranus and Neptune, icy giants at the edges of the solar system. Asteroids and comets remained behind, leftovers from this great construction. Some would wander the solar system for billions of years. Some would later strike planets, delivering chaos, or in Earth's case, water, and perhaps even the ingredients for life. The early solar system was far from peaceful. It was a place of endless collisions. Young planets slammed into each other. Moons were torn apart and reformed. Orbits shifted and danced in chaotic patterns. And among this chaos, one young rocky world slowly emerged. A small sphere, still glowing with heat from its birth. Its surface molten, its skies filled with smoke and ash. A world still under construction. That world would become Earth. The Earth was not yet a home. It was a newborn planet in a violent nursery. But already it held the promise of oceans and continents, of mountains and forests, of animals and people. The story of Earth had begun. From the first atoms created in the fires of the Big Bang, to the death of stars, to the swirling birth of the sun and its planets. This was the preparation. The stage was set. Soon Earth itself would take shape. Soon the planet would cool, oceans would form, and the conditions for life would appear. But before that comes the next chapter. For now, as we close our eyes and drift into the deep silence of the cosmos, we remember this truth. We are made of ancient stars. We are part of a story billions of years in the making. Before Earth, there was starlight. Before Earth, there was chaos. Before Earth, there was a universe learning how to make worlds. And from that silence came home 4.5 billion years ago. Earth was not the blue and green world we know today. It was not a place of oceans or forests, not a home for animals or people. It was a place of fire, a place of endless collisions, a place where a planet was being born. Our story continues with the young solar system. Around the newborn sun, the great disk of dust and rock was slowly settling. Countless bodies, some small as pebbles, others as large as mountains, were colliding, merging, and breaking apart. Among this chaos, one growing world began to gather more and more material. Each impact added to its mass. Each collision released incredible heat, melting its surface again and again. That world was Earth. At first, Earth was a violent sphere of molten rock. Its surface boiled and bubbled with rivers of lava. Asteroids and comets struck constantly, each impact blasting craters, throwing molten rock into the sky, and heating the planet even more. The young Earth glowed like a fiery ember in the dark of space. Inside, heavy metals like iron and nickel sank toward the center, forming the planet's core. Around it, lighter rocks floated upward, forming a mantle and crust. This separation, this layering, gave Earth its structure. The iron core would one day create a magnetic field, shielding life from deadly radiation. But for now, Earth was still far from being a safe home. In this time of chaos, a truly colossal event occurred. A planet-sized body, roughly the size of Mars, crashed into Earth. Scientists call it Theia. The impact was unimaginable. Mountains were vaporized in an instant. Entire oceans of rock boiled into space. Both Earth and Theia were torn apart. But from that destruction, something new was born. The debris thrown into orbit slowly came together, forming a companion. Our moon. The moon was born from fire and impact. It orbited close to Earth at first, appearing huge in the sky. Over time, it drifted farther away, but its presence has never left us. It stabilizes Earth's tilt, controlling the rhythm of our seasons. It pulls on our oceans, creating the tides. Even in its violent birth, the moon was a gift. After the impact, Earth's surface remained molten for millions of years. Volcanoes erupted endlessly, covering the land in lava, filling the air with toxic gases. The atmosphere was thick with carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, and water vapor. There was no oxygen to breathe, no blue sky, no gentle air. The world was hostile, but it was also changing. As the planet slowly cooled, water vapor condensed. Rain fell for the first time. At first, it boiled away on the hot surface. But the rain kept falling. For thousands, for millions of years it poured. Oceans began to form. Vast basins filled with water, delivered partly by comets and asteroids rich in ice. Earth's surface, once a fiery desert, began to glisten with liquid seas. Above those seas, lightning flashed. Volcanoes spewed ash and lava. The young Earth was restless, unstable, alive with fire and storm. Yet, in this chaos, the foundation for life was being prepared. The oceans, heated by volcanic vents and filled with minerals, became chemical laboratories. Simple molecules drifted, collided, and combined. Though life was not yet born, the stage was set. Meanwhile, deep inside Earth, the iron core spun, creating a magnetic field. This invisible shield wrapped around the planet, protecting it from the harsh solar wind. Without it, Earth's early atmosphere would have been stripped away. With it, the planet was sheltered, able to hold on to its air, its water, and its potential. The continents were not yet the stable lands we know today. Instead, fragments of crust floated on the molten mantle. Over time, these fragments moved, collided, and broke apart. They would grow into the first continents. The restless dance of plate tectonics had begun. The Earth's face was young and constantly changing. Volcanoes rose, collapsed, and rose again. Mountains were built and destroyed. Oceans spread and narrowed. The world was alive. though no living creatures yet walked upon it. And all the while the moon shone above, circling the earth, pulling on its oceans, slowing its spin, shaping its rhythm. The young planet was no longer just a ball of molten rock. It had oceans, it had land, it had an atmosphere, it had a moon. It was a planet. And yet, it was still a world in waiting. Waiting for chemistry to become biology, waiting for molecules to become life, waiting for the first fragile spark that would one day lead to forests, animals, and people. If you could stand on the surface of that early Earth, you would not survive. The air was thick and toxic, the heat unbearable. The ground shook with constant eruptions. Meteors still struck from the sky. But in the distance, you would see oceans stretching wide. You would see the moon looming large. You would feel the planet beneath your feet, young and powerful, just beginning its journey. The Earth was not finished. It was only just beginning. Billions of years lay ahead. Continents would rise and fall. Oceans would open and close. Life would appear, flourish, and transform the world again and again. But all of it, every forest, every mountain, every animal, every person, was made possible because of these beginnings. Because the Earth formed a core and a crust. Because a collision gave us a moon. Because water gathered into oceans. The story of Earth is a story of transformation. Fire into rock, vapor into water, chaos into balance. It is also a story of patience. For in the vastness of time, millions of years pass like seconds. Change is slow. Worlds are not built in days or centuries, but in ages beyond counting. When we look at the Earth today, we see oceans and skies, trees and rivers, mountains and valleys. But beneath it all lies the memory of its fiery birth. The iron in our blood was forged in stars. The water in our oceans came from ancient ice. The moon above us was born from destruction. The Earth is not just our home. It is a survivor of chaos, a child of fire and water, a planet born in violence and transformed into a place of beauty. As we drift to sleep, we can imagine ourselves traveling back, floating above that young world, watching as lava flows cool, as rain begins to fall, as oceans are spread. The air is heavy, the land is unstable, the seas are stormy, but slowly, surely, the Earth is becoming something more. It is becoming a home. And in the chapters to come, that home will change again. It will welcome the first living cells. It will freeze and thaw, grow green and blue. It will carry the story of life itself. But here, at the beginning, Earth was only just finding its balance. From molten fire to restless oceans, to a world with land, water, and sky. This is how the Earth was born. And this is only the beginning. The Earth was no longer only fire. It had oceans now. It had land. It had a sky. But it was still a restless world. Volcanoes roared, the ground shook, the seas boiled and steamed, the air was thick with strange gases. And yet, slowly, very slowly, the young Earth began to settle. Its surface cooled, its crust thickened, its oceans grew deeper and wider. The planet, once a glowing ember, was becoming calmer, steadier. This was the time when Earth found its first balance. the first signs of stability. The story begins more than 4 billion years ago. The bombardment of asteroids and comets was still fierce. Each impact scarred the planet's surface. Each explosion reshaped its face. But with each passing million years, the collisions became less frequent. The solar system was slowly clearing. Earth, though still struck often, was beginning to rest. The oceans, once boiling away in the heat, now began to stay. Rain poured from the skies for ages upon ages, filling the basins, creating seas that spread across the surface. In the oceans, minerals from the land dissolved, creating rich waters. The skies, once dark with ash and fire, began to thin. There was still no oxygen to breathe, but the first true atmosphere of Earth was forming. Thick with carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen, it was toxic to us, but it was stable enough to protect the planet from the harsh vacuum of space. Above the Earth, the moon circled, always watching. It pulled at the oceans, raising tides, stirring the seas. Its steady rhythm slowed the Earth's spin, creating longer days. The moon became the great stabilizer, holding Earth's tilt steady, preventing wild swings of climate that might have made the world uninhabitable. Beneath the surface, the iron core spun, creating an invisible shield, the magnetic field. Without it, the solar wind from the sun would have blown the atmosphere away. With it, Earth was wrapped in protection, held safe beneath an unseen blanket. The crust, though fragile, began to move. Pieces of land, carried by the restless currents of the mantle, drifted and collided. The first continents were forming. Not yet the vast land masses we know, but small rocky islands rising from the sea. They shifted, broke apart, and grew again. The Earth was restless, but it was also alive with possibility. On these first continents, rain fell and rivers flowed, carrying minerals to the oceans. In the seas, lightning flashed above the waves, striking the surface again and again. In the deep, hydrothermal vents spewed hot water rich with chemicals into the cold ocean, creating strange and fertile environments. This was a world of extremes, but it was also a world of beginnings. If you could stand on the surface then, you would see a strange landscape. Black rock coastlines, red skies filled with storms, oceans stretching wide and restless. No green, no blue, no life, only a raw young planet in the making. But beneath the surface, in the quiet waters, something was stirring. Simple molecules, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, were colliding, combining, forming more complex chains. Amino acids, building blocks. The whispers of life's first possibilities. The Earth itself was a laboratory, powered by heat, lightning, and the chemistry of oceans. It would still take millions of years for life to truly appear. But this was the beginning. The calm after chaos. The first moment when Earth was not only surviving, but preparing for something more. The rains continued. The oceans deepened. The continents shifted. Volcanoes released gases that built the atmosphere. The magnetic field held strong. And the Earth began to look more and more like a planet ready for life. Over time, the heavy bombardment of asteroids slowed. There were still impacts, still scars, but less often now. The skies grew clearer. Sunlight reached the oceans. The surface cooled enough for liquid water to stay in place. The balance was fragile, but it was real. The Earth was no longer just a ball of fire and storm. It was a world with oceans, land, and sky, with a rhythm of tides and days, with protection from the sun. This was the first time Earth could truly breathe. Not with oxygen, not yet, but with the steady pulse of a planet finding its place. Imagine closing your eyes and standing on the shore of that early world. You hear the waves, rough and unending, crashing against black stone. You smell the air, thick with sulfur and strange gases. You see the sky, tinted red and orange by methane, with lightning flashing in the distance. It is not our Earth, not yet, but it is beginning. This young planet will change again and again. Continents will grow, oceans will shift, life will appear, thrive, and transform everything. But here, in these early ages, Earth found its first stability. It had a shield in its magnetic field. It had a rhythm in its tides. It had oceans that did not vanish, and skies that did not collapse. It had land that rose from the sea. It was still a dangerous world, but it was also a world of hope. The planet, once chaos, was slowly becoming calm. Once fire, it was now stone and water. Once silence, it was now the sound of waves and rain. This was the Earth's first breath of peace. Billions of years remain in its story. Great upheavals, ice ages, extinctions, and rebirths. But none of it would be possible without this time. This fragile, patient moment when the Earth learned how to hold steady. The first signs of stability. The beginning of everything that would follow. And so, as we rest, as we drift into sleep, we remember this quiet truth. The Earth has always carried us. It has always transformed. It has always found balance, even after chaos. The ground beneath us, the oceans around us, the sky above us, all of it began here, in the calm after fire, in the peace after storms. This was the first time the Earth could truly be called a home. Not yet alive, not yet green, not yet ours, but waiting, always waiting, for what would come next. And what comes next is life. The Earth was quiet now. The storms were less violent, the bombardments less frequent. The oceans stretched wide, deep, and dark. For the first time, the Earth had settled into something steady. And in that steadiness, something new was about to begin. Life. It did not arrive in an instant. It was not a sudden miracle. Life began as whispers, as chemistry, as tiny sparks of possibility carried by the oceans and the air. The young Earth was a laboratory. Lightning flashed above endless seas. Volcanoes poured minerals into the waters. Deep beneath the surface, hydrothermal vents spewed streams of heat and chemicals into the cold oceans. Everywhere, energy met matter. Everywhere, simple molecules collided, broke apart, and reformed. The oceans of the young Earth were full of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur. At first, they drifted freely, but slowly, very slowly, they began to join. Chains of molecules linked together. They twisted into shapes. Some formed rings, others folded into spirals. These were not alive. Not yet, but they were more than they had been before. The first step had been taken. In shallow pools heated by the sun, molecules concentrated and clung together. On the ocean floor, near vents of heat and mineral-rich water, they found shelter and energy. Over millions of years, patterns began to emerge. Molecules that could copy themselves. Molecules that could carry information. And then, in the deep time of the early Earth, something changed. Somewhere, in a droplet of water, or in a dark vent at the bottom of the sea, molecules combined in just the right way. They created something new, something that could grow, that could divide, that could pass its pattern on to the next generation. The first life. It was not a plant, not an animal, not anything we would recognize. It was a single tiny cell, floating in the water, fragile and small. But it was alive. It could feed on chemicals around it. It could grow. It could divide into two, creating a copy of itself. For the first time, the Earth had creatures, however tiny, that could persist through time. Life had begun. For millions of years, these cells were the only inhabitants of Earth. They drifted through the seas, invisible to the eye, but powerful in their presence. They multiplied, filling the oceans with microscopic life. At first, they lived without oxygen. They fed on simple chemicals. They were patient, persistent, slowly changing, slowly adapting. And then, another great transformation began. Some of these tiny cells discovered a way to use sunlight. They captured the energy of the sun, and with it, they began to create food. This was the birth of photosynthesis. With sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, they produced sugars to live on, and as a byproduct, they released oxygen. At first, it seemed a small thing, a little gas floating into the air. But over time, this changed everything. Oxygen at first was poison to most early life. Many cells died in its presence, but for others, it became an opportunity. Oxygen allowed new ways to gain energy, far more powerful than before. Slowly, life adapted. And as oxygen filled the oceans and the skies, the Earth itself was transformed. Iron in the seas rusted, falling to the ocean floor and forming vast deposits. The sky, once orange and hazy, slowly turned blue. The ozone layer began to form, shielding the surface from harmful rays. The Great Oxidation Event, as it is called, reshaped the entire planet. From a toxic world, Earth was becoming something new, an oxygen-rich home, ready for more complex life. All of this was carried out by creatures too small to see. Tiny cells, drifting in the sea, changing the face of the world without ever knowing it. They left behind traces of their existence. Layered structures, called stromatolites, formed as colonies of microbes grew in shallow water, trapping sediments into stone. Some of these ancient stromatolites still exist today, silent fossils of the earliest living communities on Earth. The Earth had life now, simple life, fragile, yet enduring. For billions of years, microbes ruled the planet. They were the pioneers, the foundation on which all future creatures would stand. Imagine drifting through those ancient oceans. The water is still, greenish, heavy with minerals. There are no fish, no plants, no coral reefs, only vast mats of microbes clinging to rocks. bubbles of oxygen rising to the surface, and the faintest stirrings of possibility. This was the beginning of the living Earth. Life was not yet diverse, not yet visible, not yet grand, but it was here. It had claimed the oceans, and it would never leave. From this humble start, every living thing would descend. Every tree, every bird, every whale, every person. All of it began with a single cell, drifting in a world that had just begun to breathe. The earth was no longer only stone and water. It was no longer only sky and ocean. It was alive. Life had begun its long journey, a journey that would take billions of years, a journey that would shape the face of the planet again and again. In the silence of the deep oceans, in the chemistry of ancient seas, Earth had crossed a threshold. It had become not just a planet, but a living world. And so, as we rest and breathe, we remember this quiet truth. Life does not begin in grand explosions. It begins in whispers, in patience, in time beyond measure. And from those whispers, everything follows. The earth was alive now, not with forests, not with animals, not with the green landscapes we know today, but with something much smaller, much simpler. The planet belonged to microbes. For billions of years, tiny single-celled creatures ruled the earth. They were invisible to the naked eye, yet they shaped the planet more profoundly than any other form of life. When life first began, it was fragile. Simple cells floated in the seas, feeding on the chemicals around them. Slowly, they learned new tricks. Some captured energy from the sun. Some fed on minerals from volcanic vents. Some even began to use oxygen, turning it into a powerful new source of life. The age of microbes was not a short chapter. It lasted for most of Earth's history. While we often think of dinosaurs or humans as the great rulers of the Earth, in truth, microbes ruled the longest. They were here first, and in many ways, they never left. More than 3 billion years ago, Earth's oceans were filled with these tiny architects of the future. They lived in colonies, forming mats and domes called stromatolites. They filled the air with oxygen, slowly transforming the atmosphere. They left behind chemical traces in rocks, silent signatures of their presence. The great oxidation event, triggered by photosynthetic microbes, changed everything. Oxygen filled the oceans, then the skies. At first, this killed many of the microbes that could not survive in oxygen. For them, it was poison. But for others, it was an opportunity. Oxygen gave them energy far beyond what they had before. It allowed them to grow, to spread, to evolve. The earth itself changed as well. Iron in the seas rusted and sank, forming red bands of stone that we still find today. The sky turned from orange to blue. The ozone layer formed, protecting the surface from deadly rays of the sun. Slowly, Earth was becoming not just a planet with life, but a planet that supported complex life. Yet for billions of years, it remained the world of microbes. No trees, no animals, no flowers, just endless seas of tiny cells, carrying out the silent work of transformation. In those ancient oceans, life found endless ways to survive. Some microbes lived deep underground, in rocks and hot springs. Others floated in the sunlit waters, drifting with the currents. Some lived together, exchanging energy and materials in tiny partnerships that would one day evolve into more complex cells. It was during this age that one of the most important events in the history of life occurred. A simple cell swallowed another cell, and instead of destroying it, they lived together. The swallowed cell became a helper, providing energy. Over time, they became inseparable. This was the birth of the eukaryotic cell, the kind of cell that makes up all plants, animals, and people today. Inside these new cells, tiny structures called mitochondria produced energy. Later, in some cells, chloroplasts evolved, capturing sunlight more efficiently. These innovations allowed life to grow larger, more complex, and more capable. But for hundreds of millions of years, these eukaryotic cells remained simple. They drifted in the oceans, still small, still unseen. Earth itself continued to change. The continents grew larger, oceans shifted. The planet experienced dramatic ice ages, where glaciers stretched toward the equator. Twice, the Earth may have been almost entirely frozen, a snowball Earth. Even in those frozen times, microbes endured. Beneath the ice, near hydrothermal vents, in cracks within the rocks, they survived. When the Earth thawed, they spread again, filling the oceans with life. It is easy to overlook this age, to imagine it as empty, dull, uneventful. But it was here, in the quiet rule of microbes, that the foundations of everything to come were laid. Oxygen in the air, complex cells in the oceans, survival through catastrophe. Without microbes, there would be no plants, no animals, no people. Even today, microbes are everywhere. In the soil, in the oceans, in the air, inside our own bodies. They make life possible. They recycle nutrients, fix nitrogen for plants, digest food within us. They are the unseen rulers, as ancient now as they were billions of years ago. Imagine drifting through those early oceans. You would see no fish, no coral, no color. Just endless waters, faintly green with floating cells. Occasionally, you might come across stromatolite reefs, rising like mounds from the shallow seas. The air above you would be thin and strange, not yet rich enough to breathe. But if you could look closer, with a microscope, you would see a world buzzing with activity. Cells dividing, swimming, feeding, joining together. Entire ecosystems, invisible to the naked eye, but vast in their scale. This was the Earth for billions of years. Quiet to our eyes, but full of change. And slowly, ever so slowly, life prepared for its next leap forward. Multicellularity. Some cells began to stick together after dividing, forming colonies. At first, they were just clusters. But over time, some groups of cells began to specialize. One cell would take in food, another would help with movement, another with reproduction. Together, they were stronger than alone. This was the beginning of multicellular life. Fragile, small, but revolutionary. From these first groups, all larger life would eventually evolve. Plants, fungi, animals. All of them trace their ancestry back to these experiments in cooperation. The age of microbes was not only an age of survival, it was an age of invention. The greatest inventions of life, photosynthesis, respiration, complex cells, multicellularity, all began here. For more than 2 billion years, microbes were the only life on Earth. To them, time moved slowly. Generations passed in seconds, but change took ages. Still, their persistence shaped the world. By the end of this age, the Earth was ready. The atmosphere was filled with oxygen. The oceans teemed with simple but powerful life. The continents were larger, the climates shifting, the stage prepared. What came next would be an explosion of diversity. Life would no longer be invisible. It would grow, expand, and take forms never seen before. But it is important to remember, as we close our eyes and drift into sleep, that all of it began here, with the tiny, unseen rulers of the ancient Earth, with microbes that endured ice ages, that filled the seas with oxygen, that built the first reefs, that created the cells that make up our bodies today. The age of microbes is not just a forgotten chapter. It is the longest chapter of all. And in many ways, it never ended. For even now, as we breathe, as we dream, as we rest, microbes are with us, quiet, invisible, eternal. The Earth was alive, and it was waiting for what would come next, the explosion of life. For billions of years, Earth was the world of microbes, silent, invisible, patient. But the time came when life changed. It grew larger, it grew stranger, it grew visible. And in what we call the Cambrian explosion, Earth's oceans bloomed with creatures unlike anything that had ever existed before. It began around 540 million years ago. The Earth had settled through ice ages, through upheaval, through endless ages of simplicity. The continents had shifted. The atmosphere was rich with oxygen. The seas were full of nutrients. Conditions were ready. And then, life answered. In a span of just a few million years, brief on the scale of Earth's history, life diversified into a dazzling array of forms. Creatures with hard shells appeared, leaving behind fossils that endure to this day. Animals developed skeletons, claws, eyes, and teeth. For the first time, life could hunt, hide, and defend. The oceans became crowded with trilobites, strange armored beings that scuttled across the seafloor. Soft-bodied worms wriggled in the mud. Sponges filtered water through their porous bodies. Other creatures grew more bizarre. Anomalocaris, with its wide mouth and grasping arms, prowled the seas. Hallucigenia, with spines jutting from its back and many legs beneath, crawled slowly across the ocean floor. Opabinia, with 5 eyes and a long claw-like proboscis, searched the seafloor for prey. Life was experimenting. Shapes and designs appeared, some successful, some destined to vanish. But out of this explosion came the ancestors of nearly every major group of animals alive today. The Cambrian seas were alive with movement, soundless to our ears, but filled with the quiet rhythms of creatures living, feeding, competing. This was the beginning of the visible Earth. For the first time, predators hunted prey. For the first time, ecosystems formed, with balance and struggle woven into the web of life. The oceans, once quiet, were now filled with drama. Creatures swam, crawled, burrowed, and hunted. For the first time, the story of life could be seen. As the Cambrian period ended, life continued to grow. In the Ordovician seas, coral reefs began to form. Tiny jawless fish, the earliest vertebrates, appeared, ancestors of the fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals to come. Plants began to creep onto land, small and simple, but pioneers of the forests that would one day rise. The Silurian period followed, and the seas became rich with fish, some armored, some agile. On land, the first true vascular plants appeared, able to grow taller and spread wider. Soon, insects and arachnids joined them, the first animals to breathe air and walk upon the land. In the Devonian, often called the Age of Fishes, diversity flourished again. Oceans swarmed with new species. The first sharks appeared, sleek and powerful. Fish developed jaws and fins strong enough to propel them swiftly through the water. And then, another great step was taken. Some fish began to explore the shallow waters, developing strong fins and lungs that allowed them to breathe air. From them would come the first amphibians, creatures able to walk upon land. The earth was no longer only oceans. Life had begun to colonize the land. Plants spread across continents, turning barren rock into green landscapes. Forests rose for the first time, filling the air with oxygen, shading the land, creating new worlds for animals to explore. Insects grew wings, taking to the skies. Amphibians walked through swamps, their bodies half fish, half land creature. The web of life grew wider, more complex, more intricate. The Carboniferous period saw vast forests of ferns and towering trees. Swamps spread across the continents. When these plants died, they piled up and were buried, their remains slowly transforming into coal over millions of years. The Earth was building its future, storing energy that would one day power civilizations. In those forests, giant insects thrived in the oxygen-rich air. Dragonflies, with wingspans as wide as a hawk's, soared above the trees. Millipedes longer than a person crawled along the forest floor. Amphibians grew large, hunting in the swamps. But change never stops. In the Permian period, reptiles rose to prominence. They were better adapted to drier climates than amphibians. They laid eggs on land, freeing them from the need to return to water. From these early reptiles, future lineages would diverge: dinosaurs, birds, mammals. By the end of the Permian, life had filled every corner of the Earth: oceans, land, and sky. The age of microbes was long behind. The age of complex life had fully begun. But woven into this story is a reminder: the Earth gives, and the Earth takes away. Periods of flourishing life are followed by times of loss. Extinctions reshape the path of evolution. Some creatures vanished forever, others took their place. The Cambrian explosion opened the door to diversity, but it was only the beginning of life's experiments. For hundreds of millions of years, Earth would see creatures rise and fall, ecosystems flourish and collapse. Yet each time, life found a way. Each time, something new emerged. If you could walk along the shores of the Cambrian seas, you would see no forests, no grass, no animals on land, only empty coastlines with waves lapping against rock. But in the shallow waters, you would see movement: trilobites crawling, strange creatures swimming, the first visible drama of life playing out beneath the waves. It would seem alien to us, strange and unfamiliar. But it was the foundation of all that followed. Every fish in the ocean, Every tree in the forest, every bird in the sky, every person listening to these words, all trace their roots to this explosion of life, this moment when the Earth's oceans came alive with diversity. The story of life is not quick. It is not simple. It unfolds over billions of years through patience, chance, and change. But each chapter brings us closer to the world we know. From microbes that filled the oceans with oxygen, to creatures that crawled onto land, to forests that stretched across continents, life has always found a way to expand, to grow, to reach new places. The Earth was no longer only a world of water and stone. It was now a world of coral reefs, of forests, of insects in the air, of animals on the land. It was alive in ways it had never been before. And yet, the story was only beginning. Greater creatures were yet to come. Dinosaurs would rise, mammals would follow, the Earth would face catastrophes, extinctions, and rebirths. But all of it, every step, every form, every story, was made possible by this explosion of life, when the world first opened its eyes and filled with movement. As we drift into rest, we remember this truth. Life is patient. Life is creative. Life is unstoppable. And from the silence of the ancient seas came the first explosion of beauty, of diversity, of wonder. This was the moment when the Earth became a living world we could finally see. The first explosion of life. And it was only the beginning. Life on Earth is full of beauty. It is full of growth, of diversity, of expansion. But it is also full of loss. The history of life is not a gentle climb upward. It is a rhythm of creation and destruction, of flourishing and collapse, of new beginnings born out of endings. 5 times in Earth's past, life has faced near annihilation. These are called mass extinctions, moments when most living things vanished, leaving only a few survivors to carry on. Each extinction was a turning point. Each one ended an age and began another. The first of these came long ago, more than 400 million years in the past, during the Ordovician period. The seas were filled with trilobites, corals, and early fish. Life was flourishing. And then, suddenly, the world grew cold. Ice spread across the planet. Sea levels dropped. Habitats vanished. Nearly 85% of species were lost. This was the Ordovician-Silurian extinction, the first great dying of Earth. But life endured. Survivors spread into the empty spaces, beginning again. Later in the Devonian period, the oceans were rich with fish. Plants covered the land, creating vast green landscapes. But another catastrophe came. The seas lost their oxygen. For reasons still debated, perhaps massive volcanic eruptions, perhaps changes in climate, the oceans grew still and suffocating. Species after species died out. Coral reefs collapsed. Nearly 75% of life was lost. The Devonian extinction reset the oceans. The Earth continued on, but the seas were quieter, emptier. And then came the most devastating extinction of all. The end of the Permian period, 252 million years ago. Volcanoes in Siberia erupted on a scale beyond imagination. Lava covered vast regions. Gases poured into the sky, heating the planet, choking the air, acidifying the oceans. Life faltered, forests withered, the seas became poisonous. In just a short span of time, 90% of species disappeared. This was the Great Dying, the most severe extinction in Earth's history. Yet even then, some endured. A few species of plants, small reptiles, tiny burrowing creatures, they carried the spark of life forward. From that devastation, a new age began, the Triassic period, and in it, a new group of animals began to rise, the dinosaurs. For millions of years, dinosaurs spread across the earth, growing into giants. They ruled the land, the seas, and even the skies. The planet was lush with forests, swamps, and plains. Life was vibrant once more. But the rhythm of Earth never stops. At the end of the Triassic, another extinction struck. Again, volcanoes erupted. Again, carbon filled the air. Oceans grew acidic. Around 80% of species vanished. But the dinosaurs survived, and with their competitors gone, they flourished. The Jurassic and Cretaceous periods followed, golden ages of dinosaurs. Enormous sauropods walked the land. Raptors hunted in packs. Flying reptiles soared above. New plants evolved, flowering plants that painted the earth in color for the first time. And then, 66 million years ago, the sky fell. A massive asteroid, 6 miles wide, struck near what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The impact released energy greater than billions of nuclear bombs. In an instant, forests ignited. Shockwaves circled the globe. Tsunamis raced across oceans. Dust and ash filled the skies, blocking sunlight for years. The age of the dinosaurs ended in fire and darkness. 75% of life disappeared. The great reptiles that had ruled the earth for over 160 million years were gone. But not everything perished. Small mammals, once hiding in the shadows, survived. Birds, descendants of small dinosaurs, endured. Plants grew again. Life, once more, began anew. Each extinction ended worlds we can barely imagine. Each left silence where once there had been abundance. But each also opened space for something new. Without the Ordovician extinction, fish might not have thrived as they did. Without the Devonian extinction, amphibians might never have reached the land. Without the Great Dying, dinosaurs may never have risen. Without the fall of the dinosaurs, mammals, and eventually humans, would not exist. Extinction is loss, but it is also transformation. The earth does not stand still. It destroys, and it creates. It ends, and it begins. Even now, scientists tell us we may be living through a sixth great extinction, one not caused by volcanoes or asteroids, but by ourselves, by human activity, changing the climate, cutting the forests, warming the seas. Species are vanishing at a rate not seen since the last Great Dying. The rhythm continues. As we close our eyes and rest, we feel both the weight of loss and the persistence of life. The earth has always carried endings, but always two, beginnings. Life endures, always. It bends, it changes, it survives. From silence comes song, from emptiness, abundance, from extinction, evolution. This is the story of the Earth's great extinctions. Not just stories of death, but stories of renewal. Stories of how life, fragile and powerful, always finds a way. And in the next chapter, life will begin again. New creatures will rise, mammals will grow, humans will walk the earth. But it all begins here, in the shadow of endings. Extinctions that shaped the path forward. Extinctions that gave us our world. The age of the dinosaurs had ended. 66 million years ago, the sky fell, and with it, the giants of Earth vanished. The forests burned, the oceans darkened, the world grew silent. But silence never lasts forever. In the shadows, in the burrows, in the places where giants had not walked, smaller creatures endured. They were warm-blooded, they were furry, they were mammals. And in the absence of the dinosaurs, mammals began their rise. At first, they were small, rodent-like creatures scurrying through the underbrush. No larger than a rat, living quietly, eating insects, seeds, and fruit. For millions of years during the rule of the dinosaurs, mammals had remained in hiding, kept small by the great reptiles that dominated the land. But now, the world was open, forests regrew, grasslands spread, rivers and lakes returned. And in this new world, mammals began to grow. Some became grazers, feeding on plants. Some became hunters, swift and clever. Some returned to the seas, evolving into whales and dolphins. Others took to the skies, becoming bats. Life was experimenting again, just as it had in the Cambrian seas, just as it had after each extinction. Shapes and forms multiplied, filling the empty spaces left behind. The Paleogene period, beginning 66 million years ago, was the dawn of this new age. Birds, too, flourished. Survivors of the dinosaurs, now free to spread and diversify. Together, mammals and birds reshaped the earth. Imagine the forests of 50 million years ago. Dense, green jungles stretching across much of the world. Strange mammals climb among the branches. Creatures with long tails, large eyes, grasping hands. They are the early primates, ancestors of monkeys, apes, and humans. On the ground, enormous mammals begin to appear. Some as large as modern elephants, some larger still. Strange hoofed animals, giant sloths, towering rhinoceros-like beasts. Predators too evolved. Saber-toothed cats, nimravids, hyenodonts, hunters with long teeth and strong jaws. The earth had entered a new rhythm, one filled with mammals of every shape and size. But the story of mammals is more than just survival. It is a story of adaptation. Whales began as small, four-legged animals, walking along the shores. Over millions of years, they returned to the oceans. Their legs shrank, their bodies grew streamlined, their noses moved to the tops of their heads. They became the giants of the seas we know today. Blue whales, humpbacks, orcas. Horses began small as well, no bigger than a dog, with toes instead of hooves. Over time, they grew larger, their legs longer, their toes merging into a single hoof. They adapted to the wide grasslands, able to run swiftly across the plains. And among the trees, primates were slowly changing. From small nocturnal creatures, they grew larger, more social, more intelligent. They lived in groups, caring for one another, communicating with calls and gestures. The roots of humanity lay here, deep in these ancient forests. But Earth is never still. Climates shifted, continents drifted, mountains rose and seas closed. Around 34 million years ago, the planet cooled. Forests shrank, grasslands spread. Many animals disappeared, replaced by new forms adapted to open land. The Miocene epoch followed, a time of great transformation. Apes diversified, spreading across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Elephants evolved their great tusks. Antelope, horses, and other grazers spread across the plains. Predators hunted them in packs. The earth was alive with motion, with herds crossing wide savannas, with flocks of birds filling the skies. And in the forest of Africa, something remarkable was happening. Among the apes, a lineage was beginning to change in ways that would one day reshape the earth itself. Around 7 million years ago, the first hominins appeared. They were not yet human, but they were different from other apes. They walked on 2 legs more often. Their hands were freer, able to carry objects, to shape tools. Over millions of years, these early hominins changed. They learned to use stones to crack open nuts, to cut meat, to dig roots. They lived in groups, working together, protecting one another. Their brains grew larger, their communication more complex. Around 2.5 million years ago, a new genus appeared, Homo, the earliest humans. They were still different from us, smaller, less advanced, but they had fire, they had tools, they had the spark of something new. Homo habilis, the handyman, used stones to shape the world around them. Homo erectus spread beyond Africa, walking into Asia, into Europe. They hunted, they built shelters, they tamed fire, cooking food, keeping warm, gathering together in the night. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus lived on the earth, far longer than our own species has yet survived. And then, around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens appeared, our species. At first, we were one of many. Neanderthals lived in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, other human species across the world. We were not alone, but we spread. From Africa, we journeyed outward, across the Middle East, into Europe, into Asia, into Australia, into the Americas. Everywhere we went, we adapted. We built tools. We painted caves. We told stories. We were small in number, but we were united by imagination. While stronger animals ruled the forests, while faster predators ruled the plains, humans ruled the mind. The earth, once ruled by microbes, then by fish, then by dinosaurs, was now ruled by mammals. And among them, one species had begun to shape the planet itself. We built fires, we built villages, we grew crops, we raised animals, we built cities. In just a few thousand years, a blink in Earth's vast history, we transformed landscapes, rivers, and skies. The story of mammals had given way to the story of humanity. But in the rhythm of Earth, there is always balance. We are not separate from the Earth. We are part of it. The same atoms forged in ancient stars. The same oxygen created by microbes. The same inheritance from the creatures that came before. Mammals rose after the dinosaurs fell. Humanity rose after millions of years of change, patience, and adaptation. We are the latest chapter, not the last. The Earth will continue, with or without us. But here, in this moment, we remember the path. From the ashes of extinction, mammals rose. From the forests of Africa, humans walked. From the ancient oceans, all life began. And all of it is written in the stone of the earth, in the fossils, in the bones, in the stars above. So as we rest, as we drift into the calm of night, we carry with us this truth. We are not separate from the story of Earth. We are the story. Every creature before us, every extinction, every transformation, every patient age of waiting brought us here. The mammals rose, the humans walked, the Earth remembered. And the story continues. The Earth has traveled through fire and ice, through chaos and stability, through extinctions and rebirths. It has spun beneath the light of the sun for more than 4.5 billion years. And now, we arrive at the present, the world as we know it, the living, breathing planet that we call home today. Look around you. The Earth is alive. Oceans cover most of its surface, vast and deep, holding more life than we can ever count. Waves rise and fall with the pull of the moon. Currents swirl like great rivers, carrying warmth, carrying nutrients, connecting every coast. Above the oceans, the atmosphere wraps around the Earth like a blanket. Thin, fragile, yet essential. It carries the winds, it brings the rains, it shields us from radiation. It holds the oxygen we breathe and the carbon dioxide that plants need to grow. Beneath our feet, the ground is restless. Continents drift on tectonic plates. Mountains rise as crust collides and folds. Volcanoes erupt, bringing fire from the deep mantle to the surface. Earthquakes remind us that the planet is not still, but always moving. And everywhere, on land, in the sea, in the sky, life thrives. Forests stretch green across continents. Grasses cover wide plains. Rivers cut through valleys, bringing fresh water. Deserts bloom with life, adapted to heat and scarcity. Ice caps gleam at the poles, holding ancient records of the past within their frozen layers. Billions of species share this planet, from the smallest microbes, invisible to our eyes, to the largest whales, whose calls echo across oceans. It is a living web, delicate and strong, woven together by cycles that have been in motion for millions of years. Consider the water cycle. The sun warms the seas. Water evaporates, rising into the air. Clouds form, drifting across the sky. Rain falls on the land, filling rivers, lakes, and aquifers. That water returns, once again, to the ocean. A cycle, endless, patient, carrying life wherever it flows. Or the cycle of carbon. Plants draw carbon dioxide from the air, turning it into leaves, wood, and roots. Animals eat the plants. When they breathe, carbon returns to the atmosphere. When they die, their bodies feed the soil. Over ages, some carbon is buried, locked away as coal, oil, or limestone. Volcanic eruptions release it once more. Another cycle, endless, shaping climate, shaping life. And the nitrogen cycle, hidden yet vital. Microbes in the soil capture nitrogen from the air, turning it into forms plants can use. Animals eat the plants, gaining the nitrogen that builds proteins, that builds DNA. When they return it to the soil, microbes begin again. Another rhythm, invisible but essential. These cycles are the heartbeat of the planet. They connect oceans to sky, soil to forest, plants to animals, life to life. The Earth today is also a planet of variety. In the tropics, jungles hum with insects, birds, and primates. Bright colors flash between trees. Calls echo through the canopy. On the plains, herds of animals move across the grasslands, following the rains, followed themselves by predators. In the deserts, creatures endure the heat, hiding in the sand, storing water within their bodies. In the polar regions, life persists on the edge of survival. Penguins huddle on ice. Polar bears roam the Arctic. Seals slip into freezing waters. Everywhere, life has found a way. And in the oceans, another world unfolds. Coral reefs bloom with color, hosting more species than any other habitat. The open sea is home to fish that shimmer in schools, to sharks that have ruled for millions of years, to whales that dive into the deep. Even in the deepest trenches, where sunlight never reaches, life thrives. Strange fish with glowing lights, microbes that feed on chemicals from vents, entire ecosystems built on energy from the Earth itself. This is the living Earth, a planet that has carried life for billions of years and continues to do so in endless forms. But among all the creatures that live here, one has changed the Earth more than any other: humans. We are a young species, only a few 100,000 years old. Yet in that short time, we have transformed the planet in ways no species before us ever has. We built villages, then cities, then nations. We learned to plant seeds, to farm, to raise animals. We built ships to cross oceans, machines to fly through the air, rockets to leave the Earth itself. We have shaped rivers, cut forests, mined mountains, burned fuels from the deep Earth. We have altered the cycles of carbon, nitrogen, and water. We have changed the climate itself. Our numbers have grown into billions. Our reach extends to every continent, every ocean, every sky. The Earth is vast, but it is also finite. Its systems are delicate, its cycles fragile, and we, for all our strength, are still bound to them. The story of the planet today is not only a story of beauty, it is also a story of challenge. Forests are cut, and species are lost. Glaciers melt, and seas rise. Temperatures climb, storms grow stronger, habitats shift. We are part of a new experiment in the story of Earth. An experiment where one species has the power to shape the entire biosphere. But we are also the first species to understand, to look at the sky and know what greenhouse gases do, to study the seas and know what acidification means, to measure the forests, the ice, the weather, and to see the changes unfolding. We are the first to know the dangers and the first to have the power to respond. And still, the Earth is resilient. Forests regrow when they are given time. Rivers heal when their waters are cared for. Species recover when they are protected. The cycles of the planet are strong, and though they bend, they can return. The Earth has survived worse than us. It has survived ice ages. It has survived volcanoes that poured lava for thousands of years. It has survived impacts from space, extinctions that wiped out nearly all life. And each time, life returned. The question before us is not whether the Earth will survive. It will. The question is whether we, and the creatures we share this world with, will survive along with it. But tonight, as we rest, we do not dwell on fear. We dwell on wonder. The wonder of clouds drifting across a sunset sky. The wonder of whales singing in the deep. The wonder of forests breathing, releasing oxygen into the air. The wonder of mountains rising, of rivers cutting valleys, of glaciers carving the land. This is the planet today. Alive, dynamic, fragile, beautiful. A world 4.5 billion years in the making. A world that carries the memory of every age. A world that is our home. As we close our eyes, we remember that we are part of this story. Every breath we take is given by plants and oceans. Every drop of water we drink has cycled through rivers and skies for millions of years. Every atom in our bodies was forged in ancient stars. We are not separate from the earth. We are the earth, thinking, breathing, dreaming of itself. This is the planet today, a place of balance and change, a place of beauty and struggle, a place we call home. And though the story is still unfolding, though the future is uncertain, tonight we rest in the truth that we belong here, on this planet, in this moment, together with all life that shares this fragile living world. The earth today, our home, our story. The story of Earth is not finished. It is still unfolding, moment by moment, day by day. But like all stories, it has a future written in the cycles of the Earth, in the movement of the continents, in the life of the sun, in the quiet laws of the universe. And tonight, as we drift through this final chapter, we imagine what lies ahead. The Earth today is alive with oceans, forests, and life. But it is always changing. Slowly, continents drift, pushed by the deep currents of the mantle. In 50 million years, Africa will collide with Europe. A great mountain range will rise, where the Mediterranean Sea once was, taller than the Himalayas. The Red Sea will widen into an ocean. Australia will drift north, joining Asia. The Atlantic will continue to grow, pushing the Americas farther from Europe and Africa. In 250 million years, all the continents may come together again, forming a new supercontinent. It will not be the first. Long ago, Pangaea stretched across the Earth. Before that, Rodinia. Before that, Columbia. The Earth has always brought its continents together and broken them apart. The cycle continues. On this new supercontinent, the climate will change again. Deserts will spread through the interior. Storms will circle the coasts. New species, unimagined, will walk the land and swim the seas. Life will continue, adapting as it always has. But change is not only in the land. The sun itself is changing. Right now, the sun is steady, burning hydrogen in its core. But slowly, over billions of years, it grows brighter. Each 100 million years, its light increases. In about 1 billion years, the Earth may grow too hot for complex life. The oceans may begin to evaporate. The skies may lose their clouds. Deserts may spread across the continents once more. In 2 billion years, the oceans may vanish completely. The seas that carried life for billions of years will be gone. Only dry basins will remain. Life, if it endures, will shrink back to the simplest forms. Tiny microbes, clinging to shadows, hiding in the deep earth, surviving where they can. The earth, once green and blue, will become barren again. But the sun will continue. In 5 billion years, its fuel will run low. Its core will collapse, and its outer layers will swell outward. The sun will become a red giant, enormous and hot. Its brightness will increase 1,000-fold. Its size will expand, perhaps swallowing Mercury and Venus, perhaps even reaching the orbit of Earth. If the Earth survives, it will be scorched, Its rocks will melt. Its atmosphere will be torn away. The planet will be stripped bare, reduced to stone and metal. The oceans will be long gone. The forests will be memories in the rocks. The mountains will have eroded to dust. The earth will end as it began, silent, lifeless, waiting beneath the light of a star. But even then, the story continues. The sun, after its swelling, will cast off its outer layers into space, creating a glowing shell of gas called a planetary nebula. At its center, the core will remain, a white dwarf, small, hot, and dense. It will shine for billions of years, cooling slowly, fading into darkness. Around it, the remnants of the solar system will continue to orbit. Jupiter, Saturn, and the outer planets may remain, circling a quiet star that was once the sun. The Earth, if it still exists, will be a cold, dead world, drifting in silence. Far beyond, the galaxy itself is moving. In 4 billion years, the Milky Way will collide with the Andromeda galaxy. Stars will pass among stars. Some planets will be thrown into deep space. Others will find new suns. The Earth may be gone by then, or it may drift on, carried into a new arrangement of stars, its surface long dead, but its stones still carrying the memory of what once was. The story of Earth will be finished, but the story of the universe will go on. And yet, even as we look so far ahead, we must remember, the Earth is here now, alive, blue and green, with oceans that shine, with forests that breathe, with people who dream. The far future may bring silence, but the present brings song. We are here in a brief moment between the fire of the past and the fire of the future. A moment when the Earth is alive, when the seas are full, when the skies are blue, when life thrives. This moment is precious. When we look at the Earth today, we see the inheritance of billions of years, the iron in our blood forged in stars, the oxygen we breathe, created by microbes, the land beneath us built by drifting continents, the forests and animals shaped by extinctions and rebirths. And when we imagine the far future, we see the truth that nothing lasts forever. Not mountains, not oceans, not even stars. But that truth makes this moment all the more beautiful. For in all the vastness of time, in all the endless unfolding of the cosmos, we are here, now, together, on this fragile world, alive in the only chapter of Earth's story we will ever truly know. The Earth will one day be silent again, but tonight it is alive. It breathes through forests. It whispers through oceans. It dreams through us. The far future is written in the stars, but the present is written in our hearts, in our breath, in our lives. And so, as we close our eyes and drift into rest, we remember. We are part of a story that began in fire and will end in fire. A story billions of years old, billions of years still unfolding. A story of stardust becoming life, life becoming thought, thought becoming memory. This is the story of Earth, its past, its present, its future. And though one day the Earth will fall silent, its memory will live on, in the stars that forged it, in the galaxies that carry it, in the universe that gave it birth.